The Heresy Accountabilibuddies Podcast is dedicated to all things Horus Heresy. This podcast delves into the grimdark universe where Primarchs clash, legions rise, and loyalties fracture faster than a Land Raider's track. But it's not just about the lore of the Horus Heresy. The Accountabilibuddies also explore the gaming side of things, from painting and modeling tips to product reviews and ideas to help you in your hobby. So, whether you're a seasoned Forge World veteran or a fresh-faced scout, this podcast is your Vox channel to the galaxy. Expect discussions on lore, modeling, gaming, and maybe even the shenanigans that your hosts somehow seem to find their way into. Remember, in the grim darkness of the far future, there are only two things you can count on: Heresy and your trusty Accountabilibuddies.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another jam-packed episode of Heresy Accountabilibuddies. My name is John, and joining me tonight on the 99th episode is...
Dan.
Brian.
Duncan.
Doesn't B come before D? I'm Jack.
Yeah.
And Jerry.
and special guest.
Blake.
Yay!
Sorry,
One of these days in 100, we'll finally get it. We'll pause really quickly. Just thank all of our patrons as well as our corporate overlords, and we'll be right back.
Do you love resin bases? Then go to our sponsor, Elric Hobbies, for all of your basing and basing accessory needs. Use code HeresyABB at checkout for a discount. Legendary Monument Hobbies. Monument Hobbies is a one-stop shop for all of your painting needs. Use code HeresyABB at checkout for a 5% discount on your purchase. Pop Goes the Monkey. Find maker of third-party accessory bits of arms, legs, backpacks, and more, where you can get 10% off your first order over $125 with code HeresyABB at checkout.
So, now that we're back with that, again, thanks to all of our patrons. And this is just a quick reminder here in the beginning, in case you happen to be listening to this on October 13th, when Jack Super Cool drops it the night of, or October 14th, when Jack drops it just the day of our final entries for our Into the Death Volume 3 Collector's Edition giveaway. We're going to go ahead and close all those entries on October 14th at 11:59 Central Time. 11:59 p.m. Central Time. So
That's
if your entries come in after that, and then the 15th and onwards, we're going to disqualify them. But anyone that comes in before that is completely fine. And again, all you have to do is go to our Discord, which can be found at theheresypodcast.com. Go to our contest section and make a post about what your favorite part of the podcast has been, and we'll enter you into a drawing. And if you're a patron in the month of October, we'll go ahead and give you an extra free entry for that.
And remember, it's heresypodcast.com, not theheresypodcast.com.
Yep, sorry, heresypodcast.com.
Which you can find on our LinkedIn. Our link tree. That's it. Sorry.
Yes.
LinkedIn. Absolutely.
Am I showing how old I am?
Probably. Every day.
I think everyone has to use LinkedIn occasionally. I know I hated it for the job search. But
it was fine until it became Facebook for
professionals.
Not even for professionals. Until it became Facebook Part 2.
Yeah,
Yes.
Facebook
Anyway.
for corpos. Anyway, so I'll go ahead and kick off hobby progress. I wasn't getting a lot done this week, and then last night I decided to basically sit in my airbrush booth for about 4.5 hours. Anyone remember all those Ultramarines I was working on like 4 months ago?
Yeah.
I got all of those highlighted.
Nice.
So all 200 odd infantry that I've got in those tubs, all of them are highlighted. All I need to do is put the filter down, and then I can clear coat them and start doing decals. So hopefully I'll get those done by the end of the year is my goal right now, to keep on track for my New Year's resolution to double my Ultramarine size, which is psychotic, and I don't know why I do that to myself.
But, yeah, we had resolutions, didn't we?
Wait, what?
We did.
Yeah, that's not happening for me. Not at all.
Brian, I haven't seen you in a while. What you been up to?
This Brian? Yeah.
Yes. Just one.
Just been working away, building more and more terrain every week, and took a look at the White's Alpha Legion army to see what I need to do to get that bumped up a little bit in points. I think I need to add some Exodus and I'm blanking on the name of the Terminator Legion specific unit for them.
Lernian.
I think I have to add another 5-man squad of Lernian to that list to get it where it should be. But that's been about it. I don't have the lofty goals and ambitions of 30,000 points of Ultramarines, unlike our good friend John, but he's just cool like that. What about you, Dan? What have you been up to?
So this week's hobby progress is probably anti-hobby progress because I took advantage of the sales and got my Christmas present early, which is a PlayStation 5. I promptly started with playing Space Marine 2, realized how crappy I am at first-person shooters, so I spent a lot of time playing Gran Turismo 7 this week. Yeah, so really not good for hobby progress in the grand scheme of things, but I'm sure the shiny new things will wear off, and I'll jump back in and get to painting soon. That's the plan.
When you wanted to do Space Marine again, Duncan and I were playing a couple weeks ago, so you can do cross-play across PS5 to other things. So if you want us to join in on your co-op, we'll help you.
Yeah, I'll definitely want to hook up with that at some point. I know there was a channel here in the Discord where people were posting their titles or nicknames or how they already use. So I'll have to throw that up in there too once I figure out what the right thing is. So, but yeah. So with that, I will move over to Duncan. What you been up to, Duncan?
Oh, let's see here. I hosted the Hobby Hangout this week where I got some more of the World Eaters started on the non-gold medals on them. I've got 10 of them with what I've been using for pretty much all my base medals these days is 222 Army Painter War Paints Death Medal. I've been putting that on down as a base medal for pretty much everything. It's kind of a I don't know, kind of a off brass decayed metal kind of color. I really like it. It comes out as a nice dark non-steel, and
similar to aged metal or decayed metal.
It's really not. It's really not. It's kind of its own thing. And I've been using that as my base layer for a whole bunch of metals for a while now. Ever since I first got it, being intrigued.
Check it out.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. It's pretty nice.
Death metal, you said it was?
Yeah, it's Death Metal by Armor Painter. It's in the War Paint Fanatics line.
Okay.
But I got those down on 10 guys. I got another 20 who are ready for that, and 2 characters who are now to that same point. I got 120 bases from Elric's Hobbies that have arrived. And I got a game in this week with a listener who's also a local to myself and Jack, and had a lot of fun with that, and discovered something that I had no idea about, and that I was 100% wrong about. And I'm going to go ahead and give Eric Getz a shout out on what he was absolutely correct about, and I was entirely wrong about, that apparently a lot of people don't realize. In the FAQ, question, can an advance or withdraw reaction be used to embark upon a transport if a move directly forwards or away from the enemy unit that triggered the reaction would mean every model is in the reacting unit can end up with that move within 2 inches of an access point, and that unit is eligible to embark upon that transport? The answer is yes. So I thought they weren't allowed to do that. And so he didn't do that. And then I charged a command squad of my Sons of Horus chieftains into him. So, yep, sorry about that, Eric. My bad entirely. Yes, you should have been able to do that, which would have had me charging instead into the ever so happy drill and punching that instead of punching the Mechanicum guys who I was punching instead. So, had a fun game. Really like his army. It's really, really nicely done up. Really unique looks for some of the guys on there. It was fun. Other than that, I have not done any additional hobby this week. I'm hoping to get more done next week, but we'll see. With that, I will take a step back and punt it over to Jack. Jack, what have you got done this week, hobby-wise, sir?
So, Jamie, what have you done?
So, I was going to, up till today, I would be the same boat as Jack, but I actually did something I hadn't done in a while, which is I actually got a game in. So, got to play Blake, smaller game, 2,000 points, Dark Angels versus Sons of Horus. And, yeah, had fun. Asher was with me. He was interested for about the first hour and then decided to whip his phone out and start watching videos on it like I would figure somebody his age. But, yeah. My dice decided to give up about halfway through the game, which Blake can easily comment on. It was fairly close until about maybe turn 3. Yes, Blake?
Yeah, around turn 3.
Yeah, it was about turn 3 where it kind of turned. So, yeah. I mean, good game. Happy to get some dice rolling in and good to spend some time with Blake, which it's been hard with everything going on with my family life and everything. So, but yeah, I didn't get any other hobbying done really this week. I got the new Nova Orange Monument paint, and I got a can of the black primer to a guinea pig for everybody. I'll try to see if I can use it this week. Tell everybody what my thoughts are on them. Also, I know that speaking of, Dan said he got a PS5 to play. Well, I know it's mainly for driving games, but he also got Space Marine 2. This may have some blowover for us and the Heresy community as a general, but I talked with my GW manager this week, and he said because of Space Marine 2, like the video game, this week alone, he's had $30,000 in Space Marine sales.
Damn.
I'm talking power armor, no orcs or nothing else, just power armor. He's turned $30,000 worth of product. And he said the week before was about the same, if not higher. And most of them, it's all new people. So I know when Dawn of War 1 first came out, that was how a lot of people got into the hobby. And it's kind of looking like this may be kind of an unexpected gateway into the hobby for a lot of people. So
nice.
I doubt the GW thinks it's unexpected. I'm sure they're hoping for that, or at the very least, not expecting some of it. Hopefully, they stock and do all of the other things correctly. Could take care of that, because they've not historically done so well with that. But without trying to be too negative about it, but yeah,
I hope they capitalize on it. And I know that the amount that Space Marine 2 has sold has blown away all the people involved. I think it's somewhere in like at least 1 million plus, and they were looking for like 30,000 to be happy.
Well, I know,
like there was none in the 30-mile radius to pick up at stores. I had to have it shipped to my house, so I was able to pick up the PlayStation and the other game and an extra controller just next day when they dropped the sale at Best Buy. But I had to order Space Marine and get it shipped to me.
Yeah.
So I know with like looking at online stores or whatever for like Xbox and PlayStation 5 or whatever Sony PlayStation, it's in like it has been in and out of the top 10 sales since it's came out, which that's kind of, it's it's prominently featured is what I'm getting at. So I mean,
I have to say it looked, I did like the tutorial and started killing some Tyranids and stuff and Permagons and whatever, but it looks and feels pretty damn good. I have to say, I think they did a really good job getting a feel for being a Space Marine and in that situation. And, modern video games, our graphics are amazing coming from a guy who started playing Pong. It just seemed smooth. It didn't seem really glitchy. The controls seemed good. I'm not good at them, but that's a different conversation altogether. I never have been. But, I'm really impressed with it. So that'll help too.
Sure.
Yep. Who hasn't gone yet?
Blake hasn't gone.
Yeah, Blake.
So I've actually got quite a bit of hobbying done over the last month or so. My goal is to have this Confused Ultramarine army done by LVO, and LVO is a little over 3 months away. So January 16th is my deadline. I have gotten my third tactical squad primed, not primed, but base coated, inked, and started my transfers on it. I also have built 2 10-man assault destroyer squads, as well as kit bashed the Zaphin Dominar, or whatever the Blood Angel named character is, to a Praetor Ultramarine that will double as a death dealer in the LVO not named characters, but character development. What that's going to do is that's going to allow me to take 2 destroyer or assault destroyer squads as troop choices. So I'm pretty excited about that. I'll have 5 scoring line units, and then I'll have a few other spicy little things to throw in there. Still back and forth on my third heavy support slot versus a rotary cannon squad. And I'm not going to lie to you guys, rotary cannons have been really high. Yeah. They've been really high on my top support squad here recently. I got to play a couple games. A couple weekends ago, I got to play a beautiful Salamander's army on a live stream, and I also played Jamie with some Sons of Horus, and they the rotor cannons, man, they're fun, and it's just different because you don't see a lot.
It's like orc shooting.
It really is. On top of that, just been designing missions for upcoming events, working on a player packet that I just finished. I'll go more in depth about that later. And then I also have got the gold trim on a Contemptor that is also going to be for LVO. And then that's pretty much it. It's been really, really busy. I've been in a transition of transferring jobs within the hospital, so it's been kind of crazy. I haven't had a ton of time. I've been trying to do my best to get to hobby hangout on Wednesdays, but with this job change, I usually don't get off work till 8 o'clock now, so it's just a lot later. But other than that, I'm going to shoot it back to John with the news.
All right, so strap in, boys. We got a lot of stuff to cover. Right off the bat, for next Sunday, we've got pre-orders of Rise of the Dark Mechanicum. A lot of preview articles since we covered last week talked about this new upcoming book. Is going to be for Legions Imperialis. They dropped hints and an article for a couple of new units that are coming out for Legions Imperialis. So for Heresy Thursday, they covered the Tenebrak Archer Battlestalker, the Arax Butcher Assault Stalker, Arpak Former Scout Host, as well as some of the rules that come along with these units. So we've got the Networked Anima. As long as they're within 8 inches of each other, they can do some cool stuff. And then they've got some other rules for protocols and things like that. I don't play Legions Imperialis, so I'm not going to go too far into this stuff. But I really like the looks of these units, especially the Swarmers. If these come out in 28 millimeter. I definitely think I could see picking some of those up.
Are those the
some
little
cool
unicorn looking
conversions and
things?
stuff. Yeah, they
They're
almost look
the
like
Necron
the.
things.
Yeah, I was thinking they're more like the. I forget what they're called, with the ones that are the radiation suits that can have rotor cannons that the normal Mechanicum can take. They look like a lot bigger versions of those. Like Skillax is what they're called.
Mm.
They look like a really big Skillax, but get 3 per base for Legions Imperialis scale. And then again, there's some artwork that shows the walkers. It definitely looks like that those are 32 millimeter scale in the pictures. There's a lot more detail in some of those things.
And they're a lot larger, supposedly, than what people are thinking they are. They're not. They're like Knight and Titan size in stature.
Yeah. All of even the larger walker that we talked about last episode comes up to about head height on a Porphyrin. Someone had gone through and done like base size comparisons with all the Knights and stuff, and even the Swarmers are going to be bigger than Terminators by the looks of it. They're beefy boys. So it'll be really cool if we get this as a completely separate sub-faction in 28 millimeter Heresy.
And I don't know if you talked about it last week, but I know, to me, all this stuff looks like the Dark Admech has ventured way too deep into Mars, and a lot of this stuff looks like stuff that's a hybrid between War of the Worlds type Mars invaders and like Necron stuff.
Yeah, there's definitely a heavy Necron influence to it, feel.
Yeah, you can see combined elements too with some of the legs and things like that, where you could almost imagine a plastic kit coming in with sharing a couple of components.
So I mean, yeah, it's just the Void Dragon type influence.
Yeah, I really dig the way they're going.
Yeah, so the book itself will... Oh, sorry, Blake, go ahead.
I would say I suspect that we may see some in the 28 millimeter people taking some of the Necron stuff and kit bashing it because those models are awesome.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
Wouldn't surprise me either.
But so next week you can pre-order the book. You can pre-order cards that go with that, as well as the Mechanicum Battle Group that we talked about a couple weeks ago that comes with all the different things in there. So you've got 146 models inside that, including the first look at the Arl attacks. They're also going to have a couple of battle groups. The first one is going to be a Knight Household Battle Group. It has 4 Lancers, 6 Custoris Knights, and then 2 Porphyrins. It's actually a really decent start to a Titanicus army if you want to not play Legions Imperialis with it. There's also a Titan battle group, which is a Warlord, a Reaver, and 2 Warhounds.
That's basically half of the starter box, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the old start. Well, the kind of secondary release of the starter box had, I think it was 2 Reavers or something like that. But either way, that's a really good force for Titanicus. And then they're going to be re-releasing the Manufactorum Imperialis Sector. This is all the cranes and silo terrain pieces. And so that's really all we're getting from official GW next week. Unofficial, official GW stuff. That's where we got. Oh, go ahead.
So we talked about the 28 millimeter Knight battle group last week. So we figured out, I don't think we talked about this on the podcast, but they corrected it to say it is different than the previous one, and it does not come with the special character sprue. I forget his name right now. And it does not come with the sprue that has the fists and the carapace weapons and one of the cannons, I think, if I remember correctly. That stuff's all out of print now, so it's very similar. It's still 4 Armigers and 2 big Knights, which is a decent start for a Knight force, but it is missing those 2 other special things that came out from the one a couple years ago. So, yeah.
Yeah, and if you want to get those extra parts, I'd recommend Taro Model Maker. He's been a really good guy to me. I've spent a lot of money with his stuff in the past, and it's all correctly to scale with GW, and sometimes you can't even tell that it's not official GW stuff. He does really good sculpt. Sometimes it's a little pricey because they're all resin, but you're not going to have. I've had very, very few bubbles in any of the stuff I've ordered. So if you want to get that 4 Armiger 1 Knight box, I would definitely add on with those stuff.
Yeah, he's made a lot of cool stuff for Knights for a really long time. Agreed.
Yep. So GW merchandise has kind of started opening up their Christmas releases. So already released this week and in stores is all of the Warhammer Ugly Sweaters. So you can get Mechanicum, Sisters of Battle, Necrons, Guard, Orcs, Chaos, Haven, Dark Angels. You can get knit caps and little beanies and scarves from Ultramarines and Black Legion, as well as a bunch of different ornament sets. So there's 6 of the founding legions ornament set that just have the kind of a face-on view of a Marine helmet. There's also separate ornaments for like Gotrek and Felix, as well as some like gift boxes and things that are made out of metal. And you've also got releases of...
Isn't there like a Grot Bomb Squig costume too, or something like that?
Yeah, it's a red squig blanket hoodie, so it's kind of like a Snuggie that turns you into a squig. It's interesting. I'll put it that way.
I saw one of those at the store the other day, and I was just like, "Wow, okay."
Yeah, it's one size fits all, so probably not most gamers.
Yeah, I was gonna say, but definitely would not have fit me. Asher wouldn't have had any.
I was gonna say, there's a specific target for that. I'm not it, but it's out there.
Yep. Yeah, they had a robe last year that looked like Ultramarine Scout armor when you put it on. I thought that was pretty cool, but not this time. And then from Joy Toy, we got previews of the Horus Heresy Blood Angel Crimson Paladins. So they've got one guy with a spear, one guy with an assault cannon, and it looks like he also comes with a sword and shield. We've got and then 3 other just sword and shield guys. So there's 5 different sculpts for the Blood Angel Crimson Paladins in Joy Toy scale. And that's really everything that we got previews for coming up. Definitely some cool pre-orders coming up with the Dark Mechanicum stuff, and hopefully we'll start seeing that stuff in 28mm, judging by all the cool pictures we're getting.
I look forward to seeing Dark Mech as an actual army in the game.
Yep.
I was really hoping the Martian Civil War book would have more of that stuff in it, but it seems not to be the case.
Unfortunately. But hey, maybe if we get a full-up Dark Mech book instead, I will take that. Because that would just be cool.
Yeah, I would like rules for more Skitarii stuff to bring in some of those plastics, but...
Excuse me.
I would agree there. Yeah, full-up rules for Skitarii, that'd be awesome. I'd really love that, because there are so many different types of things out there that people I've seen use for Skitarii, including the regular Skitarii from GW. And I just love to see what he'll come up with, especially if they're all about the tech heresy and abominations that can be done.
Yep. That's all of our pre-orders, gentlemen. Blake, do you want to talk about you said you were designing an event packet?
Yeah, so we can start out with kind of like, I know you guys had Joe on last week to kind of go over the fate of KO's prom.
Yep.
Say that again?
I mean, Joe was here for day 1, so I don't think he actually was there for everything. Whereas you...
he was just there for day 1.
Whereas you obviously organized and held the entire event.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us all about that fun first?
So we'll start out with some statistics, because, you know, I love me some statistics. We had
these players.
Yeah.
The reason why they're the best.
So originally we had 22 attendees. One unfortunately got COVID, and another one had some personal stuff come up. So we ended up with 20 players day 1 and 14 players day 2. Unfortunately, Milton made landfall, and a couple of our guys that were there day 1 are actually in the guard, and they got activated. So they had to drive all the way back to Florida that night, and it's like 7:30 at night when we're trying to finish day 1. So I hope Max and Ricky made it back okay. You know, we've been thinking about you guys, making sure everybody's good there. Secondly, let's get to kind of like a breakdown of just what I've got. So we ended up with 20 players, and amazingly enough, it was 50-50 traitor to loyalist ratio. Like, it was 10 on one side, 10 on the other. That is almost unheard of at any major, mid-major, or even like local event I've ever done other than this one. As far as Army comps go, Alpha Legion was 25% of the player base. There was 5 of them, which, you know, actually mattered because Alpha Legion were actually in control of the planet, and they still are to an extent. Next, we had 3 factions that had 2 players, and they made up 10.5% of the player base each. And then we had several one-offs. So we had 1 Solox player, 1 Demons player, 1 Black Shields player, Dark Angels, Emperor's Children, Iron Warriors, Imperial Fists, Iron Hands, and Word Bearers. So there was, I think I said 2 Blood Angels, 2 Salamanders, 2 Mechanical players. To kind of break it down, you know, day 2 is a little bit more skewed because we had fewer people because people had to drop, and we ended up with right around 10, 11. A couple guys had to leave early because of Milton as well. Unfortunately, you know, all the guys from Florida, hope everybody's safe in that regard. But from day 1, the average sum of campaign points gained by every player was 21.7. Now, there are some outliers to this because there were several players that scored at the threshold or above, and then there were several that scored below the threshold. We actually had 2 players score above 25 campaign points on day 1. We had 9 players score between 19 and 25 campaign points. We had 5 players score between 11 and 18 campaign points, and we did have 4 players score less than 10 campaign points on day 1. I have the victory points, but it's a lot more like random because there were some people who maxed victory points. There were some people who didn't score any victory points at all, and it's just really skewed. But for day 1, the final score was Traitors 140, Loyalist 134. And then day 2, believe it or not, guys, the Loyalist came back and scored 6 more campaign points than the Traitors did, and it ended in a 190 to 190 straight down the line tie. So nobody took the planet.
That sounds like some Alpha Legion shenanigans right there.
Dude, in Alpha Legion fashion, 100%. Let's talk about a little bit about some of the prize support that we had. Just want to say thank you to Chris Bergeron for designing and painting the trophies. I want to thank Wes Cogdell for hosting the event at his store, High Ground Hobbies in Madison, Alabama. It is literally one of the best gaming stores I've ever been to, and it's got everything. If you guys get a chance to go, you really should. I also want to throw a shout out to Lead Pursuit podcast because they were the ones who live streamed our missions and games on day 2, and I really thank Doug for that. Thank you, Doug. So our duelist champion was actually a demon player, and that was Greg Reinhardt. Greg actually had the most challenges accepted and won over the first day, and it was not even close. I think he had like 8 or 9 1 challenges, and the next closest I think was 4 or something like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and his demons were so neat. It was all Cthulhu themed. So he had squigglies, like just tentacle things. It was true, like in fashion, void horrors, and I loved it. It was such a cool concept of an army. Nick Waters is the War Masters champion with his black shields. This kid had a really cool concept. His warlord was this like once Raven Guard who like fought alongside the Emperor's children. They all became black shields, but they were traitors, and I can't remember the rest of the background. But he also had a Catan there, and that thing just ate everybody's lunch, dude. It was awesome to watch. Like, people never faced one of those before, and they were just trying to figure it out. Super cool. Believe it or not, guys, and this is the wildest of the wild, the Emperor's champion for the Loyalist was Gray Huffman, and this dude brought Imperial Heralds. That's right, Loyalist word bearers. And the very first mission was Loyalist word bearers versus demons. And I kid you not, it could not be any more wild and weird than that. It was just like that whole game 1, mission 1. I was like, that's really happening right now. Okay. But dude had a really cool army. His narrative was super awesome. I think his praetor's name was like Azdax the Unrelenting or something. I'll have to look it back up, and I apologize, Gray, if you're listening. If I butchered that, I didn't mean to. But it was super cool. And then Best Painted went to Levi Colt out of I think he's out of Pensacola or Tallahassee. He's actually the North Florida EO. He hosts the War in the Webway every year. I think that's what it's called, or Blood in the Webway, something like that.
I think it's Blood in the Webway. I could be wrong.
Yeah, Blood in the Webway. So really cool to get to see him. His salamanders looked fantastic. They were this very vibrant, gradient green. They really did pop on the table. I actually got to play them in one of the streaming missions, and it was really cool, dude. Super fun army to play against. He unfortunately had to leave a little early because in Florida, I guess Milton, but he said next time he was going to try and fly. Kind of go off that, I actually did a survey post event, and I had a fairly large number of responses. So out of 20 players, 13 responded. Unanimously, 100%, everyone said they felt like it was a true narrative-driven event, and they all had fun. Of my oaths of moment, the 13 responses, 77% of the people said that they liked the every oath of moment. 23% said they liked some of them, but not all. Every single one of the 13 responses, 100% said they utilized the oaths of moment. There were a couple people who said that there was, other than Big Game Hunter, there was a couple people who said that there could have been some better tweaks on some of the oaths of moment to not make them so powerful. I understand that. I hear you. I will be working on that going forward to make those better. The missions were all over the place. A lot of people really liked every mission on day 1 and day 2, except for maybe mission 3. They got a lot of flack from people. I understand. It's ambush. Ambush can be very daunting and very difficult to play. But you got to remember, it's game 3. You're playing 3,000 points. You're trying to get through a 2.5-hour game on fumes. Honestly, ambush is one of my favorite missions because it takes so much of just the hard parts of 30K out and makes it really easy. It's easy to focus on your rules. It's easy to focus on the mission. It dumbs it down enough, but it also makes it fast. And when you're tired and you're ready to go, that's kind of that's one of the main reasons why I chose that one. So all my players know that I'm super transparent in everything I do, and that's the main reason why we chose that mission. And truthfully, it's one of those things where you really try and bring something different that people don't normally play, or at least a different aspect to it. I will say that people overwhelmingly wanted custom deployments, and that's something I'm going to look at going forward. They liked playing the BRB layouts, but when it's randomized, sometimes you get the same mission over and over. I get it; it can get stale. So
if you don't mind me interjecting here, one of the things that I think old school players worry more about ambush than the latest edition players should, because reactions change that up so much, right? There's so much more you can do and so much more agency. Even being the guy stuck in the middle with using your army reactions and having that agency available than it used to be, where if you were in the middle and you were just getting destroyed first turn and you hoped you had enough stuff left to make a game out of it. So I think, when it comes down to it, some of the more fun games I've had in second edition have been ambush deployment and events. And I think that's part of the reason why.
Yeah. Oh, I will say this. There was about 35% or at least 33% I know of players that didn't actually read the mission. They just kind of like waited to the last moment. And then it's like, oh, hey, this is what I'm supposed to do. Well, that changes everything, which is, it happens. I did try my very best to make the people in the center not feel bad for being in the center. So one of the mechanics that I added to it was, if you were 6 inches from the center, your unit, if a unit fell back, it fell towards the center, and if it fell within 6 inches of the center, it immediately regrouped and became fearless.
Well, that's cool.
And that was super important because, like for some of the armies that were melee heavy, when you would just normally clean somebody's clock in the first round, like in the first round of combat and everything, well, JK, you're not doing that because every one of those units is fearless. So they become anvils, and it's more difficult to like break through that. So, I did give the defenders like bonuses for being the ones who were being ambushed.
That's cool.
That's a really good way of doing that. I've seen another one that was defenders got first round unless the attackers could seize it. I thought that was also something that's kind of neat.
And in hindsight, I like, as soon as I started the mission and I saw some of the just egregious things that happened, I was like, damn it, I should have just made defenders go first. But next time they will, if I choose that mission. So I know that wasn't this time, but next time you learn from your mistakes, right?
Yeah.
So unanimously, 100% of the people who did the survey said they would come back. Interestingly enough, I asked what people preferred, if they preferred 1 day versus 2 days, and it's actually it's a lot closer than I thought it would be. Several people answered 2 days, but the majority did answer 1 day, and I get it. I mean, traveling and expenses, it can be very difficult. But it's a lot closer. I mean, it's like 40% to 60%. So I know that a lot of the guys coming from out of town, especially like down from Florida, you got a 7-hour drive. You really want to get your money's worth and your travel expense worth. And they really enjoy 2-day events. And that's something that we will continue to do going forward. We're just going to alternate those. The next question I asked was, what percentage, or not what percentage, what points break would you want to play? And I asked if you wanted to play greater than 3,000 going forward, 3,000, 2,500, or less than 2,500. Now, I can tell you from past experiences what I have said openly as an EO, I prefer 2,000 point games. And the reason why I personally prefer 2,000 point games is it's very difficult to get 3 games in a day at 2.5 hours with 3,000 points. You have so many people who are flipping through their rules. Not everybody plays as frequently as I do or knows the rules like I do. So you want to play, I would prefer to play smaller games to be able to get those games in and people still have fun and not feel rushed towards the end. And yes, we can do things like play through lunches and stuff like that. And I try really hard not to make people feel rushed, but when you have rented a space at a retail store for X amount of time, you're kind of put on a clock there. And that's always been my thought on it. Now, as far as the percentage, 62%, 61.5% of the player base said they wanted to play 3,000. 16% said they wanted to play 2,500 points, and then 23% said they wanted to play greater than 3K. I can tell you right now, the only way we will play greater than 3K from what I've seen at this moment is if we play 2 rounds in a day and not 3, or we're doing like a mega battle / apocalypse, and that's just the God's honest truth. Whenever you're trying to EO something and people bring a crap ton of models, it's awesome to see, but it is a headache and a half to try and like push through all that stuff.
It absolutely can be. You are right.
So hindsight on things that I would change or make changes to from a personal perspective, I will say that demons, Runestorm demons especially, are very, very, very overtuned. And this is something that I've talked to a couple of the EOs across the country about. There's different thoughts on it. Firex has the 0 to 1 sovereign in standard play, and you can't take any sovereigns in ZM. LVO is more in the line of they haven't seen the problems that arises with 4-turn events and demons. And my personal take on it at the moment is the simplest one without restricting, because I'm trying really hard not to restrict things. It's basically going forward at any of my events, Runestorm demons will count the turn 1 greater than it actually is. So instead of it, and it would be turn 1, but they treat turn 1 as if it were turn 2 for their buffs. This gives them 1 full turn of having all of their buffs, 2 turns of being neutral, and then it also gives the opponent the opportunity in the 4th game turn to swing in favor, because when you give them 2 rounds of bonuses and no detriments, it leads to a ton of fields bads moments, and it's very, very strong otherwise. So that's what we're going to try first. And if we need to make adjustments after that, we will revisit that and go from there. Secondly, you try to tell people that this is a narrative event, but sometimes you bring more dreadnoughts than 3. And even though it's an unspoken rule of 1 per 3,000, it is not one that's set in stone. And as much as I dislike doing that, I will be implementing the 1 dreadnought per 1,000 points for Custodes and Astartes armies. I will not do it as an overall blanket, because Dark Mechanicum, for whatever reason, they made their Blood Crushers dreadnoughts. And when you're looking at a weapon skill 5, toughness 6, initiative 3, 3+ armor save dreadnought, limiting that to 3 doesn't lead to allowing Mechanicum players, especially Dark Mechanicum players, to have full access to their repertoire, and it really hurts them more than it benefits. It benefits their opponent more than than anything else. So I don't understand why they didn't just make it an automata and be done with it, but they didn't. So that's just my own personal take on that. And that is how we will be going forward with any future events. So let's talk about future events real quick. We have not made an official announcement yet, but it will be this week. If you are listening to it day of or tomorrow, this will be your official announcement that January 12th, 2025, at High Ground Hobbies and Cafe, we will be hosting the Devastation of Kairos Prime. It will be a one-day event at 3,000 points. It will be 3 games at 4 game turns per game, or 2 hours and 30 minutes. We will also be implementing some house rules, as well as incorporating the SN Battle Reports house rules going forward. That seems to be across the country an accepted set of house rules, and truthfully, they are very good for the most part. We will not be using all of them, but we will be using some of them. Mainly, Artificer Armor will be based off initiative. So if you have a Sergeant with initiative 4, you can make 4 Artificer saves. If you have a Praetor at initiative 6, he can take 2 or 6 2-up saves. But that's kind of how we're going to play it going forward. And a lot of the player base is in agreement on that. I have pitched that to everybody in my community. Everybody seems on board with it. Deep striking is another one. You know, previously, if you don't use this rule, even if you get scattered very far back, you can still conga line yourself up to an inch or an inch and a half away from your opponent for a guaranteed charge. So the way they have done it is how it used to be done in the old school way, whereas you basically circle around the initial deep strike. It's more thematic this way, and it feels like that's the play to make. The last special rule that I will be implementing personally, and this is just my own, is reactions will only be activated by 1 unit. So if I deep strike 3 units down, you can't have your whole army with all your augury scanners shoot 1 unit. They have to pick which one they want to shoot. They can shoot all 3, but only 3 total units can shoot with Interceptor. This is the best way to deal with allowing Interceptor to take effect, but also reducing the egregiousness of having your entire army shoot in your opponent's turn, which is super broken and should not be in the game. That's my view on it. People will argue that there are other ways that you can fix it, that you reduce augury scanners to 18-inch range. Truthfully, I feel from all of my games, which is over 200 games at this point, and my personal experiences is when you limit reactions to 1 reaction, like 2 per unit, that's going to fix a lot of those issues. But anyway, I'm super excited about this. We have the player packet completed. There's going to be some fun little novelties involved. Like we're going to have some built-in rights of war that you can use. The whole point of it is the planet is now at a point where it's a stalemate, and so we got to bring the war criminals in. And so we're bringing in it's gonna be destroyers, IRAD cleansers, you name it. We're getting real now, and it's we're taking this planet for the Emperor, or we're destroying the planet. And the traders are well, we're keeping this planet and we're keeping all the resources. So it's really that's really cool. I'm loving where we're at in the narrative on this. We'll see where we go from here, but I really am excited. Like I said, it's going to be January 12th, 2025 at High Ground Hoppy and Cafe. And we're going to start around 9, and then we're going to go from there. It's going to be 3 games. It's going to be a lot of fun. We are projected right now, fellas, to double our total attendance. So we had 20 guys come to, or actually we had 20 people come to our event. 22 were scheduled. We are projecting at least 39 people.
And I know Blake's been all over me about coming to the event, and I said I would be happy to as long as I am able to get out of what's going on. So,
all right, hold on. I need the dates again.
It's going to be January 12th, 2025. But we are close to having 40 Horus Heresy players in a one-day event in Alabama, and that's never been done before.
And the place y'all are having it is the same place that's got the Airbnb, the themed rooms, and all that too, right?
Yes, they're gonna have. It's going to coincide with the opening of the Fallout Airbnb, which is a secondary secondary Airbnb on site that will also have rooms. So it's going to be themed in one of the Fallout vaults, but it's also going to have enough room for 4 or 5 game tables. I don't remember which, but there will be gaming everywhere. And it is the best time if you're coming from out of town, because there's going to be 2 rooms that can easily sleep 6+ people. Like Wes has already said, he can get military cots out if you get enough people to come. Like it's room. There's enough room to get these people here, to get people to come, spend the night, spend the day, have fun playing Heresy. There is a restaurant inside the game store, so you can eat. Like it has everything you need to be able to spend the whole day playing Horus Heresy. When I say there's plenty of space, his 40K crowd, whenever they do their tournaments, he has 40+ players playing 40K. All right, that's great. But 40+ Heresy players, that's unheard of in this, like in something like this. And that is what our goal is to do, is we're to get to that point, and we're so close. Just saying. It's growing, and it's like what we've been able to accomplish in a year has been amazing. And I'm very proud of Chris and I, the effort that we've put in and what we've actually been able to do in such a short time. I was joking with him the other day. We just eclipsed 90 members in Bama Heresy. 3 months ago, there was 50 of us. We've almost doubled in size in 3 months. Isn't that amazing?
It's pretty cool, man. I mean,
that's legit.
Well, do you guys have any questions or anything?
So yeah. you had Joe and Samson come down from Tennessee, correct?
I did. Yeah, we did. Mm-hmm. And Joe brought his son Garrett. Oh, and speaking of Joe, so he told you guys to ask me about what the Raven Guard Cup prize support is. And I don't know if I've told you guys, but at ATC this year, I helped run that with Mace Whitaker.
Right.
I accidentally left my Raven Guard Cup that the De La Rosa brothers cut for me on the prize support table. There might have been a little alcohol involved in all that, but
no. In a Heresy event? Never.
Never.
Joe took it upon himself to claim my Raven Guard Cup as his air quotes prize. And so I had to watch that thing like a hawk last Saturday, and so when he started talking about that, it really made me chuckle because I did, dude. I had that thing hidden. I was like, this dude is gonna F with me. I'm gonna be so pissed if he takes my cup. But anyway.
All right. So I got a couple things I got to ask. Number one, what was your favorite moment of the entire event?
I will say my favorite moment of the entire event wasn't actually anything that happened in the store. It was what happened on social media. So one of the coolest things I've ever seen is through a random post on Crusade and Heresy, we actually found a new, well, he's not a new, but we found a Heresy player in Alabama who didn't know we existed.
In Birmingham area, too.
In Birmingham, Alabama. Yep. And this dude, I haven't officially met him yet, and I don't know if he wants his name over the air, so I'm going to leave that off for the time being. But it was really cool for him to find us through that, followed by a couple of name drops. Stephen Pardo and Matt Kane both commented on Bama Heresy, like not in our group, but you know, they're pretty big names within the Heresy community, and they just kind of have seen what we're doing through posts and stuff. And just for them to say the kind words that they said about how we're growing, that's probably my favorite moment in the event. I really enjoyed seeing a bunch of the armies. We had some really great looking tables. And John, I meant to tell you, your terrain, super success. Everybody fought over that table. Everybody wanted to play on it. It's actually, I was telling Jamie about this on our game today. There was actually a bachelor party that was staying at the Airbnb the weekend of the event. And when we all left, they came up and they didn't play on just any terrain. We had all these great tables set up. They played on your terrain set, dude. And the way I know is because 40K players get tilted over windows on the first floor. And so they had all this like debris and stuff covering up the first floor of all the buildings.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah, I was thinking about like throwing in a bunch of corrugated cardboard that you could glue over the windows if you wanted, but I like open windows, so.
Oh, I do too, man. But
yeah, I mean, it's just, yeah. I mean, we were talking
It's
about
just
it
funny.
in the shop today about like how they hate open, exposed windows and stuff. So
Yeah, I know that I think Michael's shop was having an issue where sometimes the Heresy guys would go through and have to look at the terrain from week to week because sometimes they would re-glue the terrain if it wasn't that way.
ridiculous.
Like people were breaking terrain one week and then quote unquote fixing it the next.
That's a little bit ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
But I
thank
gave
you.
you a shout out. Oh, go ahead.
I'm glad you liked it. I'm glad you liked the terrain. It was definitely a labor for a while, so I'm glad.
I know,
it was well received.
Well, I really appreciate it, and I gave the podcast and you specifically a shout out for painting it, and hopefully we got a couple of new listeners due to that. What was your next question, Duncan? Sorry, we didn't mean to get on a phone or tangent there.
So while that was a favorite moment for you, I'm looking more for what was your favorite moment gaming wise during the people's games that you saw?
I will say, like I said, I know which one it was. It was the Martian Civil War between Tez George and David Sampson. They both brought Mechanicum. Sampson brought his Dark Mechanicum, and Tez brought his Loyalist. And they had a grudge match at the end of the day, game one, and it was absolutely stellar. It looked fantastic. Both players, I mean, and it was close too. I mean, it wasn't just like I think Tez ended up pulling out the win by like 2 victory points. But him and Sampson, like David Sampson's Dark Mechanicum looked amazing. And Tez's like he has this really great backstory behind his Mechanicum and his Legio. He brings a Warhound pretty much to every one of his every one of the events. The thing is, though, is it makes sense based off of how he does his narrative. And he sent me some really cool like stories that he's written based off my events. I would say that was that, and of course the Word Bears versus Demons Turn 1 Game 1. Joe kind of talked about it too, and I'm going to re-shout out to Miriam. Brand new player, dude. This woman has the fire of 1,000 Suns when it comes to her passion for Horus Heresy. I don't know, some of you guys who follow along on the Facebook page have seen that she just purchased a Leviathan, a Daredale, and a Contemptor to flesh out her army so she can play in the next event. And if you haven't had a chance to see her Warhound that she did, it's really cool. I know that Joe talked about it a little bit. She took like chains and just ran them through blood of the blood god, and she like mounted them with skulls all over her her Warhound, and it's super fun to see that passion in another player. So those would be my top 3, I guess. Okay. Getting to play the Salamanders was cool too, but those are my big ones.
Okay. Of all the armies, this is my second question. Of all the armies you saw there, what army do you think truly epitomized this is the coolness and everything that kind of shows through in Heresy events and Heresy players?
So Ricky's Dark Angels were pretty spot on to what I think is a well-rounded army. Max Ventura's Imperial Fist would be another one. Levi's, his Salamanders were definitely on the up and up of what Heresy is. Some of the Alpha Legion players had some really cool concept as well. Matthew Callis brought a very interesting Alpha Legion armored spearhead, and he has this whole backstory that he's implemented into it for his characters. So at the last event, I think it was just a random sergeant or something like that, killed a Custodes shield captain in hand-to-hand combat. And so he turned him into an Opte, and he actually took a Custodes sword, mounted it on his one character, and gave him, I think, a Kami bolter. It might have been a sergeant or something. But then he had his warlord on his, like, with a sword attached to his tank, and his shirt that he wore on day 1 was a tank commander with a sword that said, drive me closer so I can swing my sword at him.
I dig that.
So there was a lot of very narrative-driven armies and players, for sure.
That right there gives me the happiest bit of all, is that everyone focusing on the narrative more than anything else.
Anything else?
That's all I got. Anybody else got questions?
I already got the lowdown today, so.
All right.
Yeah, it sounds like an awesome event, an awesome store too.
It does.
I won't be able to make it down in January, but I wished I could. So.
Oh man, I get it. Like you live in Chicago. That's a 9-hour drive.
Yeah. All right. Do you have anything else you want to say, or you go with us bouncing over to Brian and Michigan GT?
No, yeah, man. Go ahead.
Cool, Brian. You ran the Michigan GT Heresy event, correct?
Okay. Yeah.
Well, tell us
ran We ran the Michigan PT about a month ago. Last month, I believe it was the weekend of the 18th or whatever it was. We did a small narrated Zone Mortalis event on Friday, which went really well. People had a blast with that. Then we had our Saturday, Sunday, 2-day, 5-round event, which had 3,000 point lists and 3,500 point lists. And in a surprising twist of fate, just like what Bama had going down there, we were pretty much even split right off the bat. We didn't have to do any adjusting of sides. And we also had, I think, only 1 or 2 duplicate armies. We had 2 Death Guard armies that were playing on the Saturday, Sunday event. And that might have been the only duplicate. We had a pretty good representation of the different legions all around.
There was another partial Ultramarine army, right? The guy that had split allies was partially Ultramarine. And I was playing.
He was running a Shattered Legion theme, but he wasn't using Shattered Legion rules. And he was actually running it as an Iron Warriors Loyalist army. And then he had guys that were painted up with white scars and I think Ultramarines that were mixed in.
Okay, that makes sense. I knew I saw
it was a really good looking army.
Yeah.
We had 19 people show up, and I think at the end of the day, we had 13 of them actually make the event. We had some people that had some stuff come up last minute. So it was a little bit lower attendance than we've seen in the past, but it was still a grand old good time. Somebody that I've known peripherally, the friend of a friend in the hobby space, came in and played. He lives over in Grand Rapids, which is about an hour-and-a-half drive. He came in and played 30K with us for the first time, and lo and behold, apparently he's got a really big group of 30K players that nobody else knew existed over there in Grand Rapids. So
nice.
I think
that's the guy that's playing the Sons of Horus, right?
Yep.
Yeah, he was
so
good.
They're gonna. Yeah, Jake's a really great guy, and looks like they're gonna start getting into the fold and start coming to more events.
Nice. I always love seeing people come into events.
We also had 2 guys show up to play in the event that brought only Legions Imperialis, and they had a grand time as well. One was playing Dark Angels, and the other one brought Solar Ox.
A lot of little dudes on the table for that.
Yeah.
Okay, so how many rounds was your event?
It was 5, 3 on Saturday and 2 on Sunday.
All the same point levels or anything like that?
I believe we did 3 rounds of 3,000 and 2 rounds of 3,500.
Okay.
4-round events or missions.
Okay. Were the 2 rounds of 3,500 on the Sunday?
Nope, we did. The first round on Saturday was 3,000 points. The second round was 3,500. And I think the third round on Saturday, I actually put it to the players themselves if they wanted to play 3,000 or 3.5. So some people did 3K, some people did 3.5K that third round. The first round on Sunday was 3.5, and the last round was 3,000 points.
Okay. Well, how'd the narrative go, sir?
Went really well. The whole narrative track for this year was around gathering resource points after our probably 2 or 3 year stint fighting over the wool gas system in years past. The narrative being that both sides were so depleted of munitions that they had to go raid a previously lost point that was a resource hub for an old crusade during the Great Crusade. And going into the Michigan GT, the traders were leading just a little bit, maybe 12 points overall. Friday, and during the Zone Mortalis event, they pulled it even further ahead by another 15 points, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, Dan.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly. But
they were doing pretty well on Friday. And then over the course of the 5 rounds on Saturday and Sunday, the Loyalists managed to do a huge upswing, and they won out the overall narrative campaign with a, I believe, 70-point victory point lead.
Wow. That is a serious level of swing.
Yeah, they did a really good job on taking that victory.
Okay. So, narratively, where are you looking at going from here?
It's still up in the air.
Okay.
Forces of either side are still surveying their options. And then we'll have probably in the next couple of months some announcements over what 2025 will bring us as far as the narrative track up here in Michigan.
Okay. Do you have any other events that you host the games at that connect to the Michigan GT?
Normally, the Michigan GT is our end capper for the year, and with it being moved up a few weeks because of the venue itself not having the usual dates in October, bringing it to mid-September, we only did the 3 events this year.
Okay. And what are the other 2 events that you have that connect to the Michigan GT?
So I try to keep it spread out throughout the Michigan area. So we have got a pretty good group in the Lansing, greater Lansing, mid-Michigan area. And then at least half of the members of the Horse Heresy Michigan group are in the Detroit area. So I normally would host at least 2 events over towards Detroit and 2 events, including the GT here in Lansing. This year I had a hard time getting a store in Detroit willing to host. So all 3 events we did this year were in the Lansing area. We did one at Hoplite Games, which was our second event. The first event we did for 2024 was at Evolution Games, also in Lansing, but on the west side of town. Another fantastic store.
I absolutely dig all of that. Well, was there anything else you wanted to say about the Michigan GT? Any favorite moments, favorite armies you saw that really epitomized the hobby as a whole?
We had some really great looking armies out there. Everybody definitely brought some amazing armies for sure. John Pipchok from Illinois, his Solar Hawks are really sharp. Lemmy, who you know as well, he brought some Custodes that were fantastic looking.
Nice.
And I want to say the gentleman that brought the Aryan Warriors army that was representing a Shattered Legion force that we already talked about, I think that was Canadian Chris, maybe? But that army was another one that really stood out to me as well.
Okay. Well, so did you, I know it sounds like everyone up there had fun. Did you have any feedback, anything that people want to change or anything switched up for the next time?
I don't remember too much. Of course, it's also been a month since we had the event. Like I said, we did 4-round missions, which went really well.
I think most events seem to be switching over to 4. Blake, you switched to 4 as well for your event, correct?
I did. That's right.
Okay.
Well, I can say this, not to take too much. Oh, in Jamie and I's game earlier, when we got to round 5, it was already pretty much decided. So most games end around turn 4.
Yeah,
Warzone
to
had
be
a bunch
what.
of open stuff, so it kind of depended on which mission it was. So the ones that required you to get across the table and stuff like that, those ones were like 5+, but otherwise it was usually 4s.
Okay.
Yeah, I definitely didn't have any missions like that. And I know Dan talked quite a bit about the missions and how much he enjoyed them when we last recorded, which I'm glad, because 3 of them I had to write the night before. I thought I had all my missions saved on my phone, but as I was printing them off, I realized 3 of them were nowhere to be found, and I quickly whipped some up.
Okay.
I think it was a good mix of custom but not complicated, which is what I want out of an event.
Yeah, it's definitely what I was going for. And I wanted to present the greater opportunity to score a higher threshold of victory points, considering what the theme was, which was gathering resources, and that's what the VPs were representative of.
Right.
And it seems to have worked out pretty well.
Okay.
I was a bit surprised that we had probably half of the trader players had multiple rounds where they somehow scored 0 victory points. I was rather taken aback by that.
Okay,
Welcome
hold on.
to the club.
So are you talking like they just didn't score any objectives, or?
Correct.
Oh, and your objectives could only be scored by line units, or were you letting other things score as well?
No, there were some secondary ones that did revolve around killing, like First Blood, Slay the Warlord, that kind of thing. They didn't manage to get those in those 0 score missions that they had going. But
Wow.
most everything else was scoreable objective points that you needed line. And yeah, I don't know how, but they definitely had some bad days or bad rounds in a couple of those instances. But they still had fun.
I needed to play more of those guys.
It definitely wasn't blowout games all day long for them.
Okay. Well, thank you,
I've got
sir.
a quick question for both POs real quick. Did you keep with line being scoring, or did you change that up in any way? And if you did or didn't, would you do that in the future?
I kept with line being scoring.
So I have a few different missions that do different things. I tell everybody that comes to my stuff, line is important, troops are important. I will say that I did have a mission, or I had 2 missions, one on day 1, one on day 2, that included heavy armor, the heavy armor special rule. And then the last mission on day 1 was everything scored. And the reason why is because I figured it would be just a complete total annihilation. So to make it fair, everything scored.
Okay.
And that was the ambush mission?
Yes.
Setup? That makes sense.
So basically, the assault people had to get within a certain range of the center, and the defenders had to get out of the center. But it was every unit scored for that mission.
How did you handle that with immobile units, by the way?
Like immobile?
Like drop pods that cannot be moved.
Nobody had drop pods for this, but in the future, it would just be you got to kill them or they score.
Okay.
Brian? Yo.
Anything else to say, brother? Anything else to say, brother?
No, I think that pretty well covers it. I appreciate all the people that came to my event and had a good time, especially the one gentleman we had that came from northern Wisconsin to come play in the event.
Oh, wow.
That was quite a haul.
They had 2 of us from Illinois, a couple guys from Indiana, right? So you had a good mix of people from all over the place.
I think 4 of the Indiana guys came up.
Yeah, it could be.
I dig this. All right, gentlemen. Well, we did have another topic we were going to talk about, but I guess we can talk about that next week. Does anybody have an objection to calling it done here for tonight?
No, I'm good with calling it a night.
Yep.
Well, sounds good. John, you want to take us away?
Sure, absolutely. So this week, I'm John, and I've been joined by
Brian.
Dan.
Jack.
Duncan.
Son of a bitch.
Jamie.
And Blake.
And thanks for joining us this week. And always remember to stay accountable to yourself and to your buddies and to your hobby. And we'll talk to you next time for our 100th episode of Heresy Accountabilibuddies Podcast.
Yay! 100 episodes.
Bye-bye.
Like and subscribe, and see ya.